Woo! Yeah, the notification just went up on my StreamYard, which means that we are officially live now. I just have to wait for YouTube to let you all know that I'm live. And up there it is. Just got the notification from YouTube, which means that the entire nation have been alerted that we are live. You all see the title of the live stream. We got to do a little talking. I got somebody coming in, so I'm not going to waste no more time. We got about an hour to get this done, so let's go to work. So, there's a lot going on in the YouTube space right now with the FTC and the shockwaves of copper coming down. But for this one, I'm bringing in help. That's right. Creative entrepreneur Roberto Blake is on deck for VypDrive episode 47, which starts now. What's up, people? This your boy Viper, the man about tech, and welcome back to another episode of VypDrive. This is the podcast about tech, hosted by the man about tech, and we not wasting any time. I'm bringing in heavy hitters, so I make sure that you all get the right information about COPPA, which is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So let me bring in my man, my good friend and creative entrepreneurial badass, Roberto Blake. What's up, bro? How you doing?
How's it going, Viper? Wow, I can't ask for a better intro than that. Now, can I?
You know how we do here, baby. You know how we do.
Right on.
So last night I did a live stream trying to talk about COPPA, but what I wasn't aware of at the time, Roberto, is that I didn't have all the facts. So I have since then unlisted last night's Friday Night Vibe because I didn't have all the facts. So I wanted to bring you in here because we were having such a good combo in the Twitter DMs about COPPA and about the changes that we were just made aware of from our good friend Ian Corzine. So Roberto, can you kind of explain to everybody what's happening with the FTC and COPPA and what is YouTube doing that they could be doing better and maybe what they're not disclosing to creators?
Well, I mean, before I get into all of that, like the first thing I want to do is I want to ask you like how you're doing tonight.
Oh, I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, except for I made the tragic life choice of ordering out instead of cooking, and I have nothing but regrets. I have nothing but regrets. But yeah. I feel that you didn't need to unlist your stream from last night because I feel like you went off of the information that you had, and I feel like for the information you had, your reactions were appropriate, and I felt that a lot of what you said, in my opinion, still stands. And I think there's a lot of people in the community that still would agree with your sentiments from last night, myself included.
Well, I appreciate you. I think you do have a point because even with the changes that we were made aware of by Ian earlier today, I mean, at the end of the day, YouTube is going to protect YouTube first and foremost, even if that is at the expense of creators. YouTube has to protect the platform because, as I was trying to explain last night, if there's no platform, then what the hell are we creating on?
That's fair, and to bring people up to speed, they need to watch a video. I'm sure you'll link it in your show notes and in the description. There's a video from my good friend Ian Corzine. He's a great social media lawyer. We have a great relationship, and we work together on some stuff. In fact, we're going to be doing some collaborations. And so Ian's who I usually look to in the community for a lot of this stuff. Oh, excuse me. That's all those regrets coming back up right there. But the thing that is concerning to me, and I was planning to bring it up in my live stream earlier. I didn't get to that point because we were gonna I was gonna try and react to Ian's video, but I was having audio issues with the playback for YouTube in my live stream, so that was an issue. But the insider information he got, it reveals to us more of the dialogue that YouTube had with the FTC. But effectively, it changes nothing when you think about it. I mean, it theoretically would have made a difference if they had went in the different direction, that being an exception that exists within the buried within COPPA law around mixed content. However, there is a flaw that no one's brought up with the mixed exception, the mixed audience exception. The problem with the mixed audience exception is in implementation, we might still have an issue with creator advertiser revenue, because if something is not either or with kids, then theoretically, how does that affect targeted advertising, which is a major concern with revenue? And then if you have a mixed audience, well, what happens to your features from an implementation standpoint? Does that happen then at a user level versus at a video or channel level? And if we went that route, or if YouTube went that route, that that could be very tricky, because if they have to then change things at a user level, you get into a lot of complications. And
Mm-hmm.
then, of course, properly identifying users becomes a bigger issue, partly because then you're now really you're 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 getting into a slippery slope with that. If we're saying this user has limited functionality without giving it a separate app like YouTube Kids, now when you start segregating functionality at a user level, which I'm not entirely against, but from an implementation standpoint and then from a community standpoint, that's a slippery slope, and then incentivizes other bad behavior in terms of making other accounts and doing different things. And then what happens if you're both a creator and a viewer? How is that affected? Like, this, you see why they would have theoretically made it either or. I could see it being said that was a profit motive to do it, but I could also see it being a logistics or a programming level issue. Or, okay, if we have to build the system out to be more nuanced, how much money does that take? How many resources does that take? And then how many changes are we going to make to the system and the platform that could introduce instability? Because my biggest problem, Viper, I've said this to you many times in our conversations, is one of my biggest issues with YouTube is the lack of platform stability. Because every time they're forced to change something, we're creating these layers and layers of codes and systems that don't always play well together. And then we bear the consequences of
Yep.
that. And then it becomes harder to trust the basic functionality of the platform to be consistent.
Yes.
And if it's not working as intended, and it's clunky, and it's got as many users, and it's as powerful and active as a platform, and I have total sympathy for YouTube, because they're staffed with like maybe less than 5,000 employees, is what I hear. And like, that's worldwide. That's 5% of the 100,000 employees that Google employs. So it's 5% of resources dedicated to the second um, largest platform in the world in terms of search, and the largest platform for online video, that's driven by user generated content. That's very troubling how under resourced they are, and they're forced to be reactionary. And
All
I
right.
think
Let's
that's what the big problem is.
definitely. First off, thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. I appreciate you. But let's go back to the reasoning, the beginning for why we're having this conversation tonight. So as I talked about on the live stream, but for those of y'all that listen to the podcast, you might not be aware. YouTube was fined $170 million back in April by the FTC for violating COPPA. COPPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and it has to do with the way that YouTube was gathering data on minors who were using the platform. Now, back in 2013, when this originally came to light, YouTube was able to skirt this law by stating that in their guidelines, nobody under the age of 13 is actually allowed to be on the platform or use the platform. But you know how kids are, man. It's nothing for a kid to get past that guideline and watch content on YouTube anyway. So because the FTC wasn't satisfied with YouTube skirting back in 2013, YouTube ended up getting fined 170 million back in April of this year. So come January 1st, 2020, YouTube is making sweeping changes across the platform that is going to affect a lot of creators. That's why, as a YouTube creator in the creator studio right now, you have two choices. You can either mark your channel as videos that are made for kids, which will severely hamper your ad revenue and business shelf life
Features.
going forward. Yep, features going forward, right? Or you can mark your channel not made for kids, or all your content not made for kids, which means you will just operate as normal. Now, the problem
Or
with
there's
this,
another option where you could do it at a video
right?
on
I'm
a
going to get to that, right?
video basis. And
Right.
one thing, Viper, to mention, let's talk about the features that people would lose.
Yes,
And I'll
I
also
see.
tell you why they would lose them, because Like one of the problems in our community is that YouTube creators want to shift and assign blame, and then some people want to blame the FTC. I'm in that camp probably, and then there are people who want to blame YouTube, the platform. I'm more accurately in the camp of blaming them both for not just using my solutions, but the problem is that YouTube creators would lose the following features, and it's because the following features rely on user identifier data. There are people who make the argument when they want to defend the FTC on this that the FTC didn't tell YouTube to take away these features. They made that choice on their own. No, the FTC directed them to not be in violation of COPPA, which is, of course, the Children's Online Privacy and Protection Act, and it has to do with the data and information stored in cookies and your privacy. And here's the thing: if you leave comments on a YouTube video, or leave comments on a YouTube story, or you leave comments in the community tab, those are all comment-based features. Comment-based features, by their nature, Viper, are going to have user data tied to them and identifiers and tracking mechanisms tied to them. And they're supposed to, because comments are a communication, and there are several instances where in a communication you could actually end up breaking other laws.
Right.
We have a good friend who was recently swatted, John Prosser.
Right.
Our friend John Prosser, the host of Front Page Tech, was swatted. The reason that cookies and things matter is because that tracking data, if something is flagged as inappropriate or things come to surface for light for the way that a user interacts with a platform, law enforcement uses these resources when a system or a platform provides them to say, hey, this is what happened on such and such a date or such and such a time. This is when a threat was communicated, or this is when this person's information was leaked or doxed, or this is what happened. In many cases, having more data gives law enforcement tools to either prevent crimes, punish crimes that have been committed, or to arbitrate justice, or to at least establish what happened. It's evidence, so to speak.
Right.
I don't feel that less data, even if we have concerns about privacy, actually protects us. I think that
No.
more data, if anything, protects us because it gives people resources to establish a timeline, facts, legitimacy, and who is responsible for what. That being said, the reason that they said children's directed content would lose these features is because the communication features have the identifiers in them for the reasons that I just mentioned. There's a reason we collect that data and that information.
Right.
We want to tie it to identity for a reason.
Right. Okay. So let me go over the features that you will lose if you mark your video as made for kids. Number one, your video will have no notification. So you put out the video, nobody's gonna know because YouTube is taking away notifications from any videos that are marked made for kids or targeting kids.
Because
Number
that
two,
actually has individual user data because you opted into notifications or you didn't. So it's
correct.
identity data. It's identity-based data.
As Roberto just alluded to. Number two, those videos will no longer have comments enabled, so you will not be able to leave comments on the videos. As Roberto, for the reason Roberto just stated, it's all tied to data and getting data, so no comments on those videos. Number three, if your video is made for kids or marked as made for kids, it will not be searchable in the YouTube database. So you type that video title in, it's not coming up, it's not searchable. Get out of here. Number four, that video will not be suggested or recommended. And that's a big part of how creators get discovered on YouTube and through the suggested algorithm. But if you mark your video as made for kids, YouTube will not be suggesting that video to its other users because that's how they ended up getting found in the first place.
Basically, you'll only be relegated to the YouTube Kids app as a method of distribution at that point.
Right.
And at that point, your content essentially becomes television. There's no community.
Correct. Absolutely. And the big one, which is what is sending creators running through the hills, is that if your videos are marked as made for kids, they lose 90% of their ad revenue. And
well,
that's
up to that amount. It's conservatively or more realistically between 50 to 80% because that content, well, those ads, the higher value ads are based on personalized data and preferences. However, you theoretically would still get general inventory through YouTube's auction marketplace. That has a lower overall value and dollar amount because why would an advertiser want to just scatter shot their advertising to people not likely to be affected by it. So
Right.
in a meaningful way. And then kids content in general is always less valuable because you're really kind of essentially using brand awareness and you're really targeting parents.
Correct.
So it's like it's not really a great CPM for children's content anyway. It was always just about how much reach you had, and it was worth something. Now that is the reach is going to be lessened, and the value of that reach is going to be dramatically lessened in terms of ad revenue. And with not having access to these other YouTube platform distribution features, it will be less views, which also directly affects your viability for sponsorship deals.
Yep.
So it hurts all over.
It hurts a lot of things. But the big thing that we are talking about tonight that YouTube kind of failed and held back from creators is that they give you the option to mark your video as targeting or made for kids, or it's not made for kids, or actually you can do that at a channel level as well. But the other option, which for whatever reason YouTube omitted, is the option that your video targets both adults and kids, because there is a general audience factor that plays in here. And the big thing that Ian Cordine kind of let the cat out of the hat in his video is that the FTC understands that and recognizes that there is an audience that there's an audience or there's a type of video that would appeal to both adults and kids. And the FTC actually took that into account and told YouTube that that content would not fall under COPPA rules and regulations. But for whatever reason, YouTube omitted that from the choice from their choices that they were giving creators. So now you got all these creators out here who make mixed audience content that are on the chopping block because YouTube doesn't even give them the option to identify as main audience or a general audience. It's just basically, is your content targeted at kids or is it not targeted at kids? There's no middle ground. And that is the big problem right now.
Let me play devil's advocate because I know a lot of people are excited and angry about this and they feel they have the smoking gun. See, YouTube lied. YouTube threw us under the bus. YouTube doesn't care about creators and everything. Let me play devil's advocate.
Break it down.
Think about it from this standpoint. We talked earlier about the logistics of implementing this in data. If you give creators that middle ground, how many people are going to not use that in good faith, Viper?
Probably
Let's think
a lot.
we can think of, I'm not going to throw shade at some fairly large content creators over 10 million that I think we could probably come up with a couple of names.
We know.
We can use our own imaginations. There are a lot of people that already do questionable things that appeal to our target minors on YouTube and get away with a lot of stuff and have made millions of dollars doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Not giving us the middle of the road option probably is to disincentivize people like that, large and small, from creating a situation that would invite more government lean in, if you will, because again, and we all know that in New Year's Eve and then like January 1st, 2018, we had a content creator on this platform that basically ushered in a wave of scrutiny and more intensive, looks at the platform, the beginnings of another adpocalypse because they decided to film a dead body in Japan. Like, is that not something that happened in January of 2018?
It happened,
right?
It did.
So we've seen multiple instances of individual bad actors resulting in backlash against the platform, the community, and basically making it hard to be associated with the title YouTuber. And if you think for 1 minute that by offering a middle of the road option, that wouldn't in fact also be the case, and you'd have people saying, "Oh, I have a mixed audience," and no, you clearly are targeting kids, and you've in interviews said that that's what you're doing, and you have things that you do in your marketing that, if held to the standards of how television is regulated for its advertising, you would be in violation of several federal laws. But social media isn't regulated quite the same way, and it shouldn't be regulated quite the same way. It should be nuanced. I'm not saying there should be no regulations of social media. I'm taking out of context on that. But I look at things with the understanding of an entrepreneur, an advertiser, and somebody with at least a good, decent, healthy, maybe even rudimentary, you could argue, knowledge of, computer science and systems and things of that nature. So the problem is um the problem is people who will do commercially exploitive things and then try to say, "Oh no, we're not." Right? By
Right.
making it black and white, which I don't entirely agree with, but I understand, and I'm making an argument for here's why I think that would be a slippery slope and a justification. And again, it's not just to, oh, here's the YouTube shill or here's the YouTube apology. I'm like, if if we take the middle of the road approach and it goes sideways, the government's not going to entertain middle of the road.
Right.
They have no history of doing that. Do we not remember what happened with net neutrality?
Oh Lord.
Do you want to open that can of worms again? It's like, so the I like YouTube's biggest problem, and Andrew Can brings this up, is their lack of communication, their lack of effective communication, and the bad PR moves. But
Mm-hmm.
here's why I somewhat understand that. You have a bunch of engineering nerds and sales and marketing bros trying to talk to normal, regular folks, people who are amateur professionals. Okay? It's hard enough for a YouTuber to explain what they do to normal, everyday folk, right? How do you
Right.
expect a programmer and engineer to explain stuff to regular, everyday folk or to content creators effectively? Probably not going to be that easy. There's a couple of us that'll get it, but at scale, think about the trouble I have explaining business to YouTubers as it is, and why AdSense is a horrible business model to
Mm-hmm.
base your living income on. I
Yep.
have stressed that so many times. And how many adpocalypses does it take before content creators stop living on AdSense, right?
Yep.
It never ends. They always get comfortable again and say, okay, I'm in the clear now. It was a rough couple of months, but okay, we're good again. And then they don't expand, they don't diversify, they don't sell to their audience. They go right back to what they were doing before they were in panic mode and keep waiting for the shoe to drop again and again and again and again and again. Content creators on YouTube are very complacent and very attached and very romantic about ad revenue. Whereas in every other platform, Twitch, there's no ad revenue for creators. They run ads and they don't split that with creators. Instagram, they run ads, they don't split it with creators. TikTok, they run ads, they don't split it with creators, right? No other platform splits the ad revenue with creators. Why do YouTubers keep using this as a crutch when every other content creator doesn't even have the option? That yet they have thriving businesses. They have a little bit of YouTube envy, as my friend Jade would say, but like I'm so frustrated with the fact that content creators keep possessively making everything revolve around AdSense. How many times do we have to see the vulnerability of AdSense before we build better business models?
Okay, I got a question. So, okay, good review brings up a good question in the chat. While as I was watching Ian's video, he said he got a call from a YouTube informant, a guy high up at YouTube, but he couldn't reveal his name for obvious reasons. Ian asked the guy, why doesn't YouTube offer that third option for creators with a mixed audience that target their content at adults and kids? And the guy from YouTube told him that that would inversely affect YouTube profitability. I don't really understand how that inversely affects YouTube profitability. So, Roberto, can you help me understand how offering a third option would negatively affect YouTube revenue?
It depends on how it. Are you still there, Viper?
I'm here. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought we lost you there.
Nope. Still here.
It depends because I don't have all the information, and I would have to ask Ian if there was more information that he was privy to that just wouldn't fit into the video with regard to that, or that he couldn't disclose. But I would have to speculate. I can only speculate, but here's what I know about how corporations and businesses work from my experience in corporate and my experience with startup culture. The the problem when we talk about profitability is we have to understand that YouTube's profit margins are not the same thing as their projected revenue. So saying YouTube took in this amount of money is just the gross revenue, not how profitable they were. And so YouTube could have record profits in theory if we're talking about their gross profits.
Hmm.
But that's not the same thing as their profit margin and overall profitability. And if they were so much wildly more profitable, I would imagine that they would staff up more and that there would be more investment in boots on the ground, because then we would have less platform stability issues. So the thing is, I already find YouTube's profitability to be questionable. So if it comes to an implementation issue, the logistics of implementation, developers and high level developers and staffing and teaming people on this in addition to their other roles, or covering those roles, or hiring new staff, that's not a small problem. Because if you hire developers of the caliber that you need for YouTube, you're talking about, for California, you're talking about entry level salaries for those positions being maybe $80,000 or $90,000 a year, and then you'd have to throw a team of maybe 10, if not more, developers at this issue. So you're talking about millions of dollars of upfront investment in the labor, and then God knows what else in terms of how, what it takes to accomplish this. And that's just like conservative estimates at that. So, and that's just to fix this one issue and system. Who knows how many other issues this creates, and then how long do you have to get this implementation up and running based on the FTC's guidelines? So then from a profitability standpoint, you're weighing, here's my clock, here's my deadline, here's how long I have to fix this, and then I have to throw this amount of money at this, and then we're already going to lose money. And YouTube is going to lose money, because stripping children's programming of targeted ads as a whole for things they know are children's directed are the largest trafficked videos on YouTube, period. YouTube is going to lose hundreds of millions per year on this. Hundreds of millions per year on this. I'm not exaggerating that. Not when we know they're content creators for the level of traffic that they were getting. They're doing children's directed content that are making 200,000 a month. If the content creator, and yes, that's not an exaggeration in those numbers. Like, if a content creator is making $200,000 per month off of the traffic that they have on children's programming on YouTube, then that means YouTube's getting 45% of that, which means we're talking about a substantial amount of money. We're talking about $2 million a year. Well, there are millions of channels on YouTube, and many of the top traffic channels right now are doing children's programming. So you can see how this could literally represent tens to hundreds of millions of dollars per year on the ad side. But then if we talk about the logistics of staffing and the technology and the infrastructure you have to put in place to make changes to a platform that accommodates 2 billion people, then we think about it in terms of creators. We think about the 30 to 70 million channels that are where content creators operate. That's not talking about the 2 billion users worldwide. So the scale of this platform is so unfathomable that any change, even a small change, represents a large amount of money to fix the systems and the change. But then also you're compromising systems that churn tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars per month. That's not a small thing. So the mix issue, in my opinion, is if it's affecting profitability, I can only speculate that it affects profitability because of issues with resourcing, staffing, and then also the vulnerability that if this is implemented incorrectly, or creators use it in bad faith, that if creators use it in bad faith, what's the punishment from the FTC for the creators that use this in bad faith if that happens? Because we know that there's a fine of potentially up to $42,000 to the individual creators. But what we don't know is if YouTube is fined on top of that for those individual violations as well. And we don't know to what extent, or if there's a threshold or a cap, and we don't know if they'd be hit with another $170 million fine or a higher one. They know those numbers. I don't know that. I don't know what the arrangement is with regard to that, and it hasn't been disclosed to us. So, but if I were to speculate, I would say that that is a concern. If that is a concern, then people are saying, well, then YouTube is doing this out of greed and they threw us under the bus. what you have to understand is that Google's shareholders would make a decision about the future of this platform that would be very, very bad if they're not profitable, because they've almost done it before. YouTube's almost died before, and it was because YouTube was sued by Viacom for $1.6 billion right after it was acquired. Why? User generated content violating copyright law, intellectual property laws, trademark violations. So there's a problem with the fact that if the government almost hit YouTube for almost a fifth of $1 billion, almost a quarter of $1 billion, is there something that with our user generated content where if there's a middle ground that could result in higher fines than the one they already got? Because that was a settlement, Viper. The government clearly asked for more. This was a settlement. This was a concession. When almost $250,000 is a concession, when that's basically a plea deal, that's pretty harsh. So I'd have to imagine they did some kind of calculus and decided that this middle of the road solution would absolutely hurt profitability, but hurt profitability so much that the platform would be in jeopardy.
Gotcha. That was some good information.
But again, just bear in mind, this is the only information I can speculate on based on the nature of businesses and what information we have to work with. So this is my best guess.
And no, that's a pretty good guess, man. So thank you for that, no doubt. Here's the thing that me and you understand, but a lot of creators don't understand, is that when things like this happen, we are quick to like do the hot take, get a hot head, and think that the platform is throwing the creators under the bus. But what creators fail to forget, or they forget a lot, is that if there's no platform, if the platform is not profitable, you are not profitable. You have no business. You have nothing. So the platform has to live on in order for you to have any sort of a chance to make a living, have a chance on the platform, to exist on the platform. So, of course, as creators, we should want the platform to protect itself at all costs, because if the platform thrives, we thrive. If the platform is dying, we are dying. Unless, like you said, we diversify and move on to another platform. But make no mistake, YouTube is the largest media network in the world. And we as creators should want YouTube to do whatever is in YouTube's best interest to stay afloat and stay profitable, because in the end, that makes it better for all of us that live on this platform.
You have to think about the fact that YouTube thinks of itself as a video hosting platform, and that's its origin. And you have to think about what that word really means. We talk about host are a symbiotic relationship. You know, if the host dies, the symbiote dies as well.
Yep.
Like that's just like that's really dark when you think about it.
But it's the truth. It's real.
So,
I mean, you can look at it however you want to look at it. But again, if YouTube is not profitable, those AdSense checks that you rely on so much, they're going to be getting a little bit smaller. That's a lot smaller than what you're accustomed to. And then where are you at? Where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, it's why I've been preaching a couple of things, building a brand and an audience beyond your YouTube channel. I know everyone wants to build and grow as fast and as big as they can on YouTube, but then they're not porting their audience over to somewhere where they have a little bit more control. They're not building an email list, or they're not building a text messaging community, like what we've seen Gary Vee doing. I'm about to start doing that. We're not seeing people build their own website and harness the traffic. I love that Linus Tech Tips still has his forums, and his forums are some of the most active forums in the entire tech community. So like I see these things. We don't have people starting things like Linus with Floatplane, or the content creators that came together for Curiosity Stream, which I'm about to try to become a part of with Curiosity Stream and Nebula. So we're not seeing content creators host or independent platforms or become independent collectives. We're not seeing people build their email list. And then a lot of people, yeah, they might have a Twitter or they might have an Instagram, but are they really building a unique community off of that and making some unique value versus just using it as a distribution center for their YouTube content? And everything is about YouTube for these creators. You see that everyone uses their other platforms to link out to YouTube, because again, there's this celebrity culture and this YouTuber envy. There's this whole thing, no matter how big someone is in another platform, they'd probably trade it to be a big YouTuber. And I think that's a mistake. I think people don't respect the unique value that TikTok and Instagram and Twitch and now Amazon's live streaming service, these individual unique platforms are valid and they have their own thing. And I just wish from a marketing standpoint that these platforms would just give out damn trophies, Viper, because if they just gave out damn play buttons or trophies or some like that, some ish like that, then guess what? People, the clout culture would shift and people would just say, you know what, I can be a big deal in this other platform. And it, because all people want, Viper, and you see this from the YouTube community all the time when they tweet at YouTube and when they tweet at Susan Wojcicki, like, YouTubers have this weird thing, and it may be what drives them. And it's like, and I'm not being condescending when I say this, I just think that we have to accept this as the culture. It's a culture of clout first. And that comes from this insecurity, I think, of just wanting attention and to be acknowledged, to say, hey, I hear you and you exist and you're valid. And I don't know how we got to a place where that has become the most important thing in the world to people. And you've seen it yourself, Viper. People will give up money. They'll go into debt. They'll turn off AdSense. They'll curse in their videos. They'll do things that'll get them demonetized because they say, you know what, screw it. I'd rather just have the clout. I'd rather just be a big YouTuber and I'll figure the money thing out. They do it all the time, Viper. You see it yourself.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It is there's definitely a big chunk of people on YouTube that are on it for the clout, as you say, and hey, good luck with that.
The majority of the people under 25 on YouTube are obsessed with it, and they've grown up worshiping big YouTubers and watching big YouTubers, and they will tell you to your face that it's their dream and it's really all they want and all they want to happen for them. I think there are too many people that would really legitimately, and again, a lot of them, it's the honest truth. It's the honest truth that there are too many people that would rather have 1 million subscribers than $100,000 in floating cash.
Yep. So let's talk about the real issue coming on January 1st. Because like I said in my live stream, and actually I picked up on it from my man Rich from Review Tech USA when he put out this video talking about copper. But the real issue coming on Jan 1, it's not the FTC. Oh, no. Like I told you guys in my live stream last night, the FTC is not that big of a deal. They're not about to be coming sweeping YouTube looking for creators to sue. They're not doing that. They don't want to do that. They don't have the time. They don't care that much. The real problem coming on Jan 1st is the YouTube algorithm and how YouTube will change and adjust the algorithm to flag videos in violation of COPPA. That is the real problem.
That won't itself be ready for January 1st.
Really? You don't think so? Okay.
They can't meet that deadline. They'll say that it'll be developed over a period of time. It will be developed over a period of time. Okay. I mean, it'll be implemented, but I doubt it'll be that aggressive. They just have to meet minimum requirements to suggest that they're acting in good faith and in compliance with what they promised.
Right.
But it won't be a to-market product. There's no way unless they already did a round of hiring. Like a ridiculous round of hiring, because it's not a system you can build in 6 months. Even with the smartest engineers in the world, you can't really build a viable version of that in 6 months. I mean, I'm not like the greatest like programmer or script kiddie in the world or nothing like that, but it's just not feasible from where, I mean, not without hiring an insane staff of the most talented people in the world and putting them on nothing else. Now, in theory, I could see why they might do that considering they got hit with a $170 million fine, but it's like, I haven't seen any evidence of that. I could be totally wrong. They could have done it under the cover of darkness for all I know.
Okay, but let's go back to what I was saying, though. So like I said, the real problem is going to be the algorithm. Yeah. And the big issue with the algorithm is that
false positives.
Yes, the false positives are going to be so ridiculous and redundant that is the real problem. The false positives and the algorithm flagging videos as not being in compliance when in actuality those videos are probably in compliance.
The biggest false positives are going to be animation, anime, gaming, and meme channels and possibly family vloggers that have kids featured in them. Everybody else is probably fine. Ironically, anybody whose content is not that, like most of the people here that are in your audience are tech-based content. Right. And guess what? They're gonna be just fine. They might even benefit from this, ironically. Not in a way that they wish would happen, but you have to remember, Viper, ad spending when a change like this happens, an available ad inventory doesn't just magically, an ad budget doesn't magically disappear. It gets shifted somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the ad budgets that were tied to children's directed content, or at least were targeted advertising that was hitting the children's directed content, the reality is that that ad budget is going to go somewhere else, whether that's general inventory, which will balance out and do a market correction to where even some of those children channels may not lose as much ad revenue as we originally anticipated, because again, it just will be targeted ads shifted now into a budget of less targeted ads, or those targeted ads will need somewhere to go, and it will find those middle of the road content creators that might have a similar enough audience without really being able to be said, oh, you are a children's directed channel. So ironically, some middle of the road content might actually benefit, because the ad dollars have to go somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, those ad dollars will be reallocated somewhere else, but I don't know how much of it could be reallocated to tech, because tech content is not really like children geared. And if that
but the things that end up on children's programming are general brands, more again domestic brands, which means
right.
your things for your average consumer,
right.
your Coca-Colas, your M&Ms, your movie trailers and things of that nature. And so that's general consumer audiences, and tech audiences are composed of people who might have children, because tech buyers tend to be a little bit older and have disposable income. Your average person that's a larger tech purchaser is usually between the ages of 25 and 45, because they have the disposable income for, Apple and Samsung and high-end consumer electronics brands. Person buying a 47, to 80-inch, flat screen TV has a little bit of cash on them. And so that means they probably might be, a 30-year-old homeowner with 2.5 kids. So like that's just understand the overlap of audience here is how that would play out when I say that.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that, like you said, the majority of who the advertiser wants to target are the people in our age demographic, because you're talking about like 25 to 34, 25 to 45. Those are the people, like you said, with the disposable income who are spending the money. So, yeah, I can definitely see how advertising will want to reallocate those ad dollars to tech channels, because they have the demographic that's looking to spend money, especially if you're talking about tech. I mean, absolutely. People are looking to spend money if they're watching tech channels and tech content. So,
and just remember, even what we saw with Elias Tech Tips in one of his streams, where he was showing us stuff, and he's like, I don't care if you see my ad revenue on this or that, next and the other. The thing that I saw that was interesting was I was looking at the allocation of overall monetized views versus raw views. His $9 CPM notwithstanding, I mean, mine's better than that, but like Linus certainly makes more money than me. Across the board between sponsors and ad revenue, he gets the views. But I was interested, one, in seeing that his CPMs are not that high considering he's in Google Preferred, but that might be the only reason that's true is because of how many tech channels there are. So again, it's the spread of the ad dollars that's the issue, Viper, because CPMs aren't everything. You and I both know that it's monetizable view ratios. Monetizable view ratios, which means if more inventory is freed up, it's now spread to a larger diaspora of channels. So the spread is the issue, and where people might see some changes. Some people go up, some people go down. I saw this happen during the adpocalypse. There were people who were safe from the adpocalypse, and not only did they not lose any revenue, the revenue increased because of the redistribution of ads, the redistribution of ad wealth, essentially. So now there's going to be a redistribution of ad wealth from the family-friendly channels to the macro of the platform.
Yeah.
Which no one's considered. And I don't think it's a great thing. Like, yay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think anybody's going to be considering that when you got creators that are
for it.
You got creators that are folding the tent, leaving YouTube because of everything that's happening. And I think some of them might be slightly overreacting, but I mean, YouTube is not really giving them much choice right now. And I think that all of this is like early overreaction too. I think some of it will be, it's still in development, right? Like everything is not
in development.
Yeah.
And the thing is, again, it'll be interesting because, like I said, redistribution of ad revenue will work in many different ways, and we'll have to see how it plays out because a lot of this is speculation, but it's also pattern because we haven't seen anything like this before. The adpocalypse was close, but it's not quite the same thing. And then the AI changes. That's the thing that I definitely think people should be concerned about, but not in the way that they're thinking with the classification of kids content. I'm more concerned, even without the false positives on that, I'm concerned about the ripple effects of I'm concerned about the ripple effects of what happens in terms of unintended consequences of changing this thing and trying to change things to meet a deadline and compliance versus changing them through natural progression and because there's a benefit to changing them. When you try to change something programmatically and force it to meet a deadline versus a natural progression and evolution of what's the next thing and step in the platform, that's what creates instability, Viper. That's what creates problems. That's what creates glitches. That's what creates bugs. Because when you're working on a deadline with something that complex, mistakes are made.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is so, like, we've been through so much this year with YouTube alone, and it seems like there's something happening every few months that makes the platform change and things like that. And the crazy thing about it is that this particular problem, the FTC trying to protect children, this is not a YouTube issue or a YouTube only issue.
No.
This spans across the entire internet. If you are shutting down kid content on YouTube or trying to, do you really think it ends there? No. They got Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok
particularly,
Pornhub. They got everything. Kids have other ways to get content.
You have so many creators. You have so many creators super excited about TikTok and its algorithm because the threshold for attention and views and that dopamine hit is so easy. I have friends here in YouTube that are struggling to get to even 5,000 subscribers, but they got 250,000 followers in TikTok. They're going viral every week and they're killing it. And that's great for them, even though there's no ad revenue. They're building brand and they're getting the dopamine hit of, yes, I'm finally acknowledged. People notice me, like, yay, right? All the things. The problem is that there are issues and the government has reservations about whether TikTok is being used by
the Chinese government,
government for data mining and harvesting our data and our user privacy in a much more nefarious way. And the thing is, it probably is true because, I mean, that's probably what I would do if I were China right now. Like, to be very real with you, like, that's probably what my ruthless ass would do. Like, so that's concerning on that level. But then definitely from the COPPA side, that you would think that would be the one they would have really targeted, since that's the one that's very youth heavy. But if you want to make an example out of a social media platform, do you really pick TikTok? Probably not.
No.
YouTube and Google have all the money. So and
all the notoriety.
And they have the notoriety. And I mean, they couldn't really do anything to Sundar Pichai when they brought him in. Like,
oh Lord.
Like, that was an embarrassment.
That was embarrassing.
But I did think that it helped with the government hate boner for Google, right? Like I mean, I'm not trying to get political. I'm just saying it's like, okay, we couldn't get you on this. So how can we shiv you now? Like, because why bother with this? With all the things that you could tackle, and again, with so much more better platforms to address a really glaring issue of security and privacy that are detrimental, like from an actual threat assessment standpoint, YouTube is not really so bad if you want to look at it compared to, say, TikTok or even Twitch.
Yeah.
But in terms of someone to make an example of, like, even if they went after Twitch because Amazon has that money, if you go to
nobody would know. No one would know.
No one would know, and it wouldn't really be a headline. But then I mean, eventually you're going to have to go to, because think about all the CEOs and people that they brought in. The government hasn't done a Senate or congressional hearing and brought in Jeff Bezos, and I genuinely, to some extent, believe that it's like they don't want to go to war with Jeff Bezos because, I mean, think about it.
Yeah, apparently him and Donald Trump aren't on the best terms right now anyway. So yeah, there's definitely some animosity there. Yeah.
But if you have to go to war with a CEO, Zucks is a softie and Sundar Pichai is a softie. Bezos ain't.
Hey, Roberto, you know why they don't mess with Bezos, right? Because Bezos has Alexa. and he has the info. You know how that goes. They don't want to mess
No,
with
they
Joe
all
Fucker.
do. They all do. They all do. And to some extent, they don't mess with Apple because, like, we already know that Timmy been listening to everything, right? Like, you reported on that. Like, Timmy's got everything.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm surprised they haven't like gone full blown Snowden because just as a joke, like, I mean, think about it. If the tech companies just leaked everything they had on all the politicians, there'd be no one to prosecute them because the American people would be too busy eating them.
Alive
Like,
for breakfast, man.
right?
No
Carving
doubt,
them
no
up.
doubt. But
Mm.
I think to summarize this all up, man, um, I think it's a little bit too early to be panicking about how YouTube is going to change during COPPA because they still have a lot of stuff they need to work out. So all you creators that are trying to head for the hills and run away, you might want to pause, just
Yeah,
pause a little
no.
bit. Don't
Calm
don't don't
down.
burn your bridges. Don't stop your channel. Don't stop your content. Keep
Look,
doing what you do. Just make sure you mark your videos correctly and then see what
look,
happens.
just here's the thing. Here's the thing, Viper. Here's what everyone needs to do. Everyone needs to eliminate their entire emotional connection and stop having feelings about these platforms and having feelings for them and treating them like it's their boy or their girl. Like, stop having feelings. These platforms ain't loyal, homie.
No, they're
Like,
not.
they shouldn't be. From a ruthless utilitarian business standpoint, they shouldn't be. Like, because if they're going to be loyal to anyone, they have to be loyal to the average consumer, which is the viewer, and they have to be loyal to the advertiser that gives them a dollar, because that's the constituency, that's the customer. We
Yeah,
are
you got to. They got to pay the
partners.
bill. They got to pay the bill.
We are partners, because guess what? The thing is, our loyalty has to be to our viewers, and our loyalty has to be to the people that we have business relationships and to our
Of course,
customers and to our clients.
we are. A
And
lot of us on YouTube are in the same position as the platform, only on a smaller scale. But we're in the same boat. Like you
we
said, we have to
shouldn't be
appease.
loyal either.
Yeah, exactly. We have to appease the advertisers. We have to appease the viewers. Those are the things that matter most.
Exactly so. And so the thing is, in that regard, like, we're not obliged to every other content creator on the platform, even though we should take our fellows into consideration. And we
Right.
certainly should never shiv our actual friends and our actual collaborators and partners.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't necessarily hold someone like, let's say, PewDiePie responsible to always think of every other creator on the platform. It'd be
No.
nice, and he does do a better job than he used to with thinking about his influence and how he uses it. And I love the guy, like, but there's some times where there's some reckless things that have been done, and he's said that, so it's not me throwing him under the bus. I like the guy, and he said, "Yeah, I could have done this better or handled this better." With age comes wisdom and all those good things. But like, I don't hold them responsible for. Oh, they should always think about us. I mean, a lot of people did that to Logan when he had the whole Japan incident. Is like, they felt thrown under the bus by Logan, but it's like he's not really obliged to the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah,
think we have
Logan
to.
Paul could care less about the rest of the creators, not really,
And the
unless
thing
it's
is, I
friends.
don't
Yeah.
hold that against him, honestly. Like, again,
No, I
just to
mean,
make
listen, I always preach community and things like that, but I also tell creators you got to do what you got to do. You got to take care of your own because nobody's going to take care of you but you. So if you
right.
got to make a move that's going to benefit you and be in your best interest, you ain't got time to think about other creators. You need to do what's in your best interest because nobody is going to take care of you but you. That's it.
There's a lot of creators who haven't spoken up about Kappa because they're doing exactly that. They're protecting
Yep.
their interest by not taking a stance on this because they don't want to yell at YouTube or say that YouTube lied or shiv them because maybe they're looking for some relief or maybe there's something that's going to happen for them or YouTube like might take care of them. And like they're not going to disrupt that, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't. To be fair, um, it's people who have nothing to lose or have already lost in their minds, like they have more of an incentive to do that. But somebody for whom this could still all shake out, maybe they want to sit on the fence and see where it lands and everything like that and pick a winning side. And I can't begrudge them for doing that. That's pragmatic. I'll never begrudge people for making pragmatic decisions versus I'm not somebody who's going to browbeat them into some kind of moral high ground or do some kind of BS moral equivalency on them and make them an arbiter of truth of some kind, right? So
Right.
so like I feel that one of the things we should be doing, and like this is my advice to creators, is yeah, put yourself in compliance and make yourself right with that. But if you've been relying on AdSense, that's a bad business model. It was always a bad business model. I don't care how profitable it's been up until now. It's a bad business model because it was never really sustainable and it was always vulnerable. And I've been trying to fight creators on building an independent business model and being direct to consumer. Like now we have the story where David Dobrik, apparently when the adpocalypse happened, went from getting $275,000 a month to making $2,000 a month. He makes makes less AdSense than I do at this point. Okay, David Dobrik has worse CPMs and worse ad rates than me, and makes less money on ads than I do because of the adpocalypse, because all of his content's either demonetized or it's copyright claimed because he uses popular music. He wants people to have music in the thing that they recognize, because David Dobrik is making content for the kids that watch YouTube the way he grew up watching and worshiping YouTubers. So he's making content for them. So he does the zaniness stuff that's not advertiser friendly, and he does the stuff that's going to get him copyright claimed, because he's putting the viewer first, and then he made it his responsibility to make it work financially by expanding into merchandise and doing more brand deals and making everything tied to a brand deal. And so, but his audience is okay with it, because they're like, this is the price to get the content the way we want it, and for David not to compromise the art or not to compromise anything, and to be able to do this. So we'll accept it, and then they go the extra mile and they support it with their wallet. And we can learn from that. Now, I grant that David Dobrik was in a very privileged position when he got hit and demonetized by the adpocalypse. He was already, pretty well off at that point from having made $250,000 a month every month, even though his content's very expensive to make because he does craziness. But giving away Lamborghinis and stuff, like, sheesh.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that anybody can build a business model that allows them to do transactions with their audience. So many of you are afraid to let your audience support you with their wallet, and you're using YouTube as a crutch. You're using ad revenue as a crutch because you won't accept that the reality is you are scared to sell. You are scared to be called a sellout. You're scared to build an actual business. You're scared to ask people for their money and have to deliver value and be on the hook for that, because in your mind, all you have to do to create value is make good content and the rest will take care of itself. That is not an actual business, my friend.
That's not gonna get you anywhere. And speaking of being afraid to sell, I did make some new merch, so y'all should go check out VypDrive on Teespring. The link is in the description, and if you're listening on audio only, the link will be in the show notes to check out VypDrive if you want to do that. So we got new merch on deck. But Roberto, it's been a good conversation, man.
Yeah, no, it's been great. I always love talking to you, even if I end up doing a lot of the talking.
No doubt. I will have to tell you to ask people where they can find you, but people will know where they can find you, and all his information will be in the link in the description in the show notes too, if you're listening on audio only. So there is that. Thank you to a couple of you all that super chatted in the live stream on YouTube tonight. If you are listening on audio only and you want to support the podcast, check the show notes for that information. That will be there. But that will conclude this episode of VypDrive. Thank you to my man Roberto Blake for coming on and giving us the deets on COPPA, the Children's Online Protection Privacy Act. Such a mouthful, but now I think we have a better understanding of COPPA and what we should do in light of COPPA. So thank you, Roberto, for that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on the stream, Viper. Really appreciate it. Like I said, you're like my favorite small YouTuber. I see big things for you. I'm always happy to be on the program.
Appreciate it, man. You all have a good evening. And until the next time, I'll see y'all next week. This your boy Viper, the man about tech. You know where to find me. So come back for more.